we're talking about why nature should be part of your self-care practice. And today is Self-Care Sunday. So I wanted to talk a little bit about a story from this morning and kind of why I am inspired to share why nature should be part of your self-care practice. So earlier today, I was rolling around on the floor, doing some yoga, massaging my body with my foam roller, and I heard a buzzing. And I was like, sometimes we get little flies that come in. We live right across the street from the park. So we get, some nature that comes in. It doesn't usually bother me. The cats get very excited by it. It's fine. And I heard a buzzing and I was like, okay, it's probably just a fly, no big deal. So I kept on rolling, and then I heard, one of my cats knock something over. So I went over to check, and it was one of those massive bumblebees, like the ones that are this big, that had flown into my apartment. I'm not quite sure. It must have come through the screen or something. I don't know. Through the wall AC. I have no idea how this happened, but the bumblebee got in. And so I was like, my husband was taking a shower, so I had to deal with this myself. No help at all. And the cats were just very excited about it. And so I, did the capture and release where, I used a cup and then the cardboard, and I set it outside, and I was very nervous because obviously handling a bumblebee is not something I do very frequently. If ever, and I don't want to hurt it firstly, and I also don't want it to become afraid and then hurt me, but I handled it, very proud of myself. and so it's just that's so interesting that a bumblebee would come to visit, and I'm always looking for signs and signals. I really believe that everything happens for a reason. So I looked up what the message is that bumblebees send us, and I was thinking about them a little bit. And bumblebees are, of course, very hard workers, as am I, but they also stop and smell the roses. So I thought this was a really beautiful metaphor that, they enjoy life's sweetness, right? They're pollinators. They drink the pollen from the flowers, but that's part of their work, and their work is sweet. How beautiful is that? So I took some of that to heart, and especially as we spent some time outdoors today, I was really trying to be present in nature, and luckily I went to the Brooklyn Botanic Garden after I went to Prospect Park, and magnolias are just in bloom, and it's just so stunning. If you live in New York, you have to go to the Brooklyn Botanic Garden. The magnolias are just beautiful whites and pinks. I'll post images in my stories. And so I was, reading at the BBG and walking around and just really taking time to be present, trying to not look at my phone. And this to me is a major self-care practice. And it really fills my cup. I just would catch myself smiling, walking around the Botanic Garden, just looking at flowers. And by this point, my husband had to go to work, so I was by myself, walking around with a big smile on my face. No shame at all. I'm enjoying my life. And so I just really recommend taking time to do that because it's very nurturing for me. But here's where the magic happens. So I was making my way out of the BBG, and I hear this woman talk to a man behind me. They're kind of behind me, and the woman's like, "Oh my God, honey, look, there's a big bumblebee. The bumblebees are out." So this is the second time bumblebees have been in my sphere today, which yes, it's spring, but it was the same kind of bumblebee. It wasn't just a normal bee. It was one of those big bees. And so I went over to it and I just kind of watched it for a little bit, and I was like, okay, clearly there's something I need to think about right now. And, I do think that there is the message of balancing work and stopping to be present. And I'm going to continue to meditate on that. So, the magic of nature. I want to share another story. Okay, hopefully we're back. I want to share another story about the magic of nature. And this one is really near and dear to my heart. So, when I was in high school, I went to high school in the mountains, so magical. And I, at one point, was feeling pretty overwhelmed, sad about something going on. And I went to a gorgeous meadow that was on my campus, and I went to go meditate because I was already meditating by this point. That had become a practice for me. And as I went to meditate, I was crying. I was 17 or 18 years old, so emotional. And I'm closing my eyes to meditate, and then all of a sudden on my skin, I start to feel just, I don't know, I start to feel something on my skin. And I open my eyes and there is just hundreds of ladybugs everywhere. Like, just pure magic. All of these ladybugs. And this had not been like the first time in my life where ladybugs had come up. There was also, swarm feels like the wrong word, but I guess, it was like a swarm of ladybugs came to the funeral of my great-grandparents when my uncle was leading a ceremony where we were spreading their ashes. I was like 8 years old. So this was like not the first time ladybugs had been a part of my life. And I just felt such a renewed sense of peace sitting in this meadow, meditating, surrounded by ladybugs. And this happened not only once, but twice. It happened again like 6 months later. It was just pure magic. And so, I can talk all day about the magic of nature and how much I love nature, especially being a city person. I find that when I do go into nature now, it is just, so amazing. I have such a renewed sense of peace. But there's also science behind this. So it's not just my own magic and spiritual beliefs. There is science. And there's a study, or multiple studies, that have shown that when you spend time in nature, you have an amazing range of health benefits that are coming to you. One of them is that nature reduces levels, I wrote down my notes so that I wouldn't get this wrong, of salivary cortisol. You might know cortisol is a stress hormone. So this means that when you are going into nature, your stress hormones are lowering, which of course, who doesn't want less stress? This could mean less anxiety, less depression, more joy, more happiness. So that's number one. This is proven when you're spending time in green space in nature. Number two is that it boosts your immune system. So your body is now interacting with different kinds of organisms and bacteria, which then boosts your immune system. It could be good bacteria, bad bacteria, whatever, but usually it's good. Usually that actually increases your immune system. And then of course there's all of these other studies that show it, lowers heart pressure and reduces your risk of type 2 diabetes. All of this range of stuff, you can look it up. There's multiple studies. You can literally Google health benefits of being in nature. And my own spin on this as well is that, and what I experienced this morning, is that when you're in nature, if you, put your phone away and you're, being present, it's not just being present in like sitting and drinking a cup of tea, which I also love, but you're being present in a way where you're just taking in your surroundings. Like, your eyes are just looking at everything that's around you. You're breathing and you are just coexisting in harmony with nature. And this is what humans have done forever. Like, now in our society, and I'm speaking as a New Yorker, like, this is the least connected we've ever been to nature in the history of humanity. So can you imagine what effect that has on our mind and our body? And to take this to a whole other level, it's like we are so disconnected from nature, not only in our immediate surroundings, but then also in the food that we're eating. And I don't care if you eat a plant-based diet or you eat meat, like nature is animals and plants. And the way that our food is processed now, it makes it so that we are so disconnected from where the food came from. You're probably eating food from across the country or a whole other country. It's like, wow, that disconnection. Can you just imagine the impact that has? I don't even think we know yet, because it's just been such a short amount of time in the history of humanity that we've been this disconnected from nature. But you can look around us and see all the health problems that are arising and the increased anxiety, and the increased stress. So, moral of the story, add nature into your self-care practice. And I don't think this has to be any major thing. Some of my clients, again, New Yorker, so they just walk to the next subway stop. Instead of getting at the subway stop that's like around the corner from them, they'll take an extra 15-20 minute walk to the next subway stop and look at the trees. They're spaced every few feet, but just looking at the trees. Trees are living, breathing beings, and just knowing that and taking that into account and making that part of your day, I think can have a really great impact. And on top of that, once you become more in tune with nature, you can notice these little magic things like, the stories I told you earlier. And that has a profound sense on how you move through your life, a profound change on how you move through your life. So I hope that this was inspiring for you and that you're going to get out into nature. And let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. And as always, I invite you to reach out to me with any questions, anything you need support with. I'm always here for you, and I'm sending you all of my love. Happy Self-Care Sunday, friends.